How God exposes fake people in your life. Have you ever felt betrayed by someone you once trusted? Maybe a friend, a family member, or even someone you thought was sent by God. They spoke sweet words, made promises, and for a while, everything seemed perfect until the mask fell off. Suddenly, their true colors were revealed, and in that painful moment, you realized they were never who they claimed to be. But here's the truth. God saw it before you did. He knew their heart long before they entered your life. And when the time was right, He exposed them. Not to break you, but to protect you. If you've ever wondered why God allows fake people in your life, why He lets you trust them before revealing the truth, then stay with me. Because today, we're going deep into how God exposes deception and why it's actually a sign of His love and protection over you. God sees what you cannot. You can't always tell who's real and who's pretending. Some people are good at hiding their true selves. They say the right things, do the right things, and convince you they're genuine. But God isn't fooled. The Bible says in 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 7, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." God sees past the smiles, the kind gestures, and the words that sound sincere. He knows what's hidden beneath. And when the time is right, He will pull back the curtain and expose what was always there. Have you ever had someone in your life who suddenly changed? Maybe they started acting differently, speaking against you, or walking away for no reason. That wasn't random. That was God allowing you to see what was always hidden. He removed the illusion so you wouldn't be deceived any longer. The signs God uses to reveal fake people. God doesn't leave His children in the dark. He gives clear warnings before revealing someone's true nature. But many times, we ignore them. Let's talk about some of the ways God exposes deception. A shift in their behavior. At first, everything seems fine. But then, something changes. They become inconsistent. Their words don't match their actions. They start treating you differently, with less respect, less kindness. That's a warning. God is allowing their true character to surface. Unexplained betrayal. You trusted them, and suddenly, they stab you in the back. Maybe they spread lies, turn others against you, or abandon you in your time of need. It hurts. But that exposure was necessary, because if they were real, they never would have betrayed you. A gut feeling you can't ignore. Have you ever felt uneasy around someone even when they seemed nice? That's the Holy Spirit. God speaks to you through discernment. If something feels off, don't ignore it. God might be showing you the truth before it fully unfolds. Doors start closing. Sometimes God removes fake people by separating you. You might not understand why, but suddenly they're no longer in your life. This is God's protection. When someone disappears without reason, trust that God is working behind the scenes. Why does God allow fake people in your life? This is a question many struggle with. If God knows they are fake, why does He let them in at all? The answer is simple. There's a lesson in every experience. To teach you discernment. If you never encountered deception, how would you learn to recognize the real from the fake? Every betrayal, every broken friendship teaches you to listen to God's voice above all. To strengthen your trust in Him. Sometimes God allows the wrong people so you'll rely on Him, not humans. Because when people fail you, God remains faithful. To remove those who are blocking your blessings. Not everyone in your life is meant to stay. Some people delay your growth, and God, in His wisdom, removes them so you can step into something greater. When God exposes someone, let them go. One of the hardest things to do is to let go. Even after someone is exposed, we sometimes try to hold on to them. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of fear of being alone. But when God reveals someone's true nature, He's giving you a choice to obey Him or to suffer the consequences of ignoring His warning. Judas was with Jesus for years. He walked with Him, heard his teachings, and saw his miracles. But in the end, Judas was not truly with him. And when the moment came, he betrayed Jesus for a handful of silver. But what did Jesus do? He let him go. Some people in your life are like Judas. They walk with you, but they are not truly for you. And when the time comes, their true intentions will be exposed. When that happens, let them go. God doesn't reveal the fake to leave you broken. He reveals them so you can heal, grow, and move toward the people who are truly meant to walk with you. And that brings us to something even deeper. Why does God allow fake people in your life before exposing them? The answer might surprise you, but we'll talk about that next. The signs God gives you to identify fake people. Have you ever felt something wasn't right about someone, even when there was no evidence to prove it? Maybe their words were kind, their actions seemed supportive, but deep inside, something kept whispering, "Be careful." That wasn't just a thought. That was God warning you. Before deception is fully revealed, God always sends signals. He doesn't leave his children in the dark. The problem is, many people ignore the warnings, only to realize later that God was speaking all along. Today we're uncovering how God alerts you before betrayal happens, how he speaks through your spirit, and why ignoring these signs can lead to unnecessary heartbreak. A disturbance in your spirit. There are moments when you feel uneasy around someone, even though they haven't done anything wrong. You can't explain it, but deep inside, something feels off. That's not paranoia. That's discernment. God places a deep knowing inside you, a spiritual alarm that senses what the eyes cannot see. If someone's presence brings confusion, heaviness, or an unshakable sense of discomfort, don't ignore it. It could be God's way of telling you that their heart is not as pure as their words. Their actions don't align with their words. At first, everything they say sounds good. They speak about loyalty, honesty, and faithfulness. But over time, their actions tell a different story. They promise to be there, but when you need them, they're nowhere to be found. They claim to support you, yet their behavior shows envy rather than encouragement. They speak of kindness, but their words toward others are filled with bitterness. God is showing you the truth in their patterns. He allows you to see the gaps between what they say and what they do. Pay attention. Words can be rehearsed, but actions will always reveal what's real. God separates you from them for no clear reason. Have you ever had someone slowly drift away from your life without an explanation? Maybe the communication stopped, the bond weakened, or circumstances pulled you apart. It seemed sudden, even confusing, but looking back, you realized it was for the best. That was God intervening. When someone's presence in your life is more harmful than helpful, he removes them before they can cause greater damage. Sometimes this separation happens before betrayal, before conflict, before heartbreak, because God knows what you do not. If someone is constantly being pulled out of your life, stop chasing them. What you see as loss might actually be protection. They struggle to celebrate your growth. Fake people don't always reveal themselves through betrayal. Sometimes they expose themselves through their inability to be happy for you. When God begins to elevate you, not everyone will celebrate. Some will pretend to be happy while secretly hoping you fail. You'll notice small things, forced smiles, half-hearted congratulations, or a sudden change in their attitude when you receive blessings. This is God showing you their heart. Someone who truly loves you will rejoice when you prosper. Someone who doesn't will see your success as a threat. God allows you to notice these subtle reactions so you can recognize who is truly for you. God sends confirmation through unexpected sources. When God is trying to open your eyes, he often confirms it through unexpected ways. You might overhear a conversation, see something at the right moment, or have someone else bring up concerns you've been feeling inside. Maybe a stranger speaks a truth that aligns with what you've been sensing. Maybe a situation unfolds that forces you to see what you've been avoiding. These moments are not coincidences, they are divine interventions. God will use anything to get your attention when you're too distracted to see the truth on your own. When patterns keep repeating, when the same message comes from different directions, don't brush it off. God is confirming what your spirit has already sensed. Disruptions and chaos. Begin to follow them. Some people bring peace, others bring confusion. When someone's presence in your life leads to constant misunderstandings, unnecessary drama, or an unexplainable heaviness, that is a spiritual warning. God is not the author of chaos. If someone repeatedly disrupts your peace, plants doubt, or stirs division, pay close attention. The longer you ignore the warning, the deeper the damage they can cause. God doesn't just remove people when they betray you. Sometimes He warns you early enough so you don't have to experience the pain at all. But the question is, are you listening? Because when God sends warnings, He expects you to act. Ignoring them doesn't change the truth. It only delays the exposure. And when someone is not meant to stay in your life, God will make sure you see it, whether you're ready or not. But why does God allow these people in the first place? What's the purpose behind these encounters? The answer will change the way you see every betrayal, every disappointment, and every fake person you've ever encountered. Let's go deeper. Why God allows fake people in your life before exposing them? If God sees everything, if He knows who is real and who is pretending, then why does He allow fake people into your life? Why does He let you trust them, love them, depend on them, only for them to turn against you later? Wouldn't it be easier if He warned you from the start? These are questions many of us have wrestled with. When the pain of betrayal strikes, it's easy to wonder if God could have prevented it. But what if I told you that there's a purpose behind every encounter? That even the wrong people are allowed into your life for a reason? God doesn't just expose deception, He uses it. And once you understand why He allows certain people in before revealing their true nature, you'll never look at betrayal the same way again. The testing of your heart. Before God elevates you, He tests you, not to harm you, but to prepare you. And one of the greatest tests? How you handle deception. It's easy to love those who are loyal. It's easy to be kind to those who treat you well. But what happens when someone close to you is not who they claim to be? When their words don't match their heart? When their presence in your life is driven by selfish motives? God watches how you respond. Do you let bitterness take root? Do you seek revenge? Or do you trust Him to deal with them in His way, in His time? Jesus faced this test. He knew Judas would betray Him, yet He still washed his feet. He still allowed him to sit at the table. Not because Jesus was blind to the betrayal, but because He understood that even fake people serve a purpose in God's plan. The strengthening of your discernment. There's a lesson hidden in every encounter. And sometimes, fake people are the very ones who sharpen your ability to discern truth from lies. Without deception, how would you learn to recognize sincerity? Without false love, how would you value what is real? God allows certain people to enter your life as a lesson. Not everyone who smiles is your friend. Not everyone who calls you family has your best interest at heart. And through experience, you begin to see patterns. You begin to recognize who is genuine and who is wearing a mask. If you've ever been deceived, don't see it as a mistake. See it as training, a lesson that will protect you in the future. Because once you've seen deception up close, you'll never be fooled in the same way again. The revelation of who you're truly aligned with. Some people enter your life because of what they think they can gain. They're drawn to your kindness, your success, your connections, but not your spirit. And if God never allowed them in, you might assume they were meant to walk with you forever. But there comes a moment when God reveals who is truly aligned with your purpose. When someone is only connected to you for what they can receive, rather than who you are, God will let the relationship run its course until the truth is undeniable. It may take months, it may take years, but when they no longer benefit from being in your life, Their true intentions surface. And when that happens, God is giving you the gift of clarity. Because it's better to lose the wrong people now than to have them hinder your destiny later. The exposure of what's in you. We often focus on what fake people reveal about themselves, but what if God is also using them to reveal something about you? Every encounter exposes something within you, whether it's patience, wisdom, pride, or even a wound that still needs healing. Maybe God allowed a betrayer in your life to show you that you still struggle with unforgiveness. Maybe He allowed someone to take advantage of you, to teach you that it's time to set boundaries. Maybe the pain of deception was meant to push you closer to Him, instead of relying on people to fill a void only He can fill. God wastes nothing. Every situation, every heartbreak, every false relationship is used to refine you, to strip away anything that doesn't belong, to bring you closer to the person He has called you to be. The setup for something greater. What if I told you that every fake person you've encountered was setting you up for something better? Because here's the truth. God never allows something to be taken away without replacing it with something greater. When the wrong people leave, the right ones come. When deception is exposed, deeper wisdom is gained. When betrayal happens, divine redirection follows. Some people were never meant to go where God is taking you. And rather than you finding out too late, God allows them in only for a season so that when it's time, He can remove them without hindering your future. If someone has been revealed as fake in your life, don't see it as a loss. See it as God making room. Because what comes next is not just the removal of the wrong people, but the arrival of the right ones. And that brings us to an even deeper truth. How does God remove people from your life without you even realizing it? Sometimes you won't even see it happening, but when you look back, you'll know it was His hand all along. Let's go deeper. How God removes toxic people from your life without you even knowing. Have you ever looked back and realized that someone who once played a big role in your life is now just a distant memory? Maybe you didn't even notice the moment they started fading away. There was no dramatic fallout, no heated argument, just a quiet separation. And now, when you think about it, you wonder, was that God? The answer is yes. God doesn't always remove the wrong people in obvious ways. Sometimes He does it so quietly, so smoothly, that you don't even realize it's happening until they're gone. And that's because He knows that not every battle needs to be fought. Not every separation needs an explanation. Some doors are meant to close without noise, without struggle, because God is protecting you in ways you cannot see. A sudden distance that can't be explained. Have you ever had a close friendship or relationship that just changed? Maybe the calls became less frequent. Maybe the conversations felt forced. Maybe you no longer felt the same connection you once did. And before you knew it, the relationship faded. At first you might have thought, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, you did nothing wrong. It was God creating distance. When someone is no longer meant to walk with you, God slowly removes the bond. He allows distractions, misunderstandings, and new directions to naturally separate you. It's not rejection, it's redirection. If someone was meant to stay, nothing could pull them away. If someone was never meant to stay, nothing could make them remain. Opportunities that lead you in different directions. God knows that some relationships will only hold you back. And rather than letting them destroy your purpose, He creates opportunities that shift you onto a different path. Maybe a job change moved you to a new place. Maybe a new passion pulled your focus elsewhere. Maybe unexpected blessings took you in a direction they could no longer follow. At first, it might seem like a coincidence, but looking back, you realize it was divine alignment. God redirected you so smoothly that you didn't even notice He was removing people who were never meant to go where He was taking you. A lack of peace in their presence. There are moments when God doesn't remove people physically, but He makes sure you feel the difference spiritually. you begin to notice something feels off. Conversations that once felt natural now feel heavy. Being around them drains you instead of strengthening you. You try to hold on, but deep inside, you know, this is no longer where you belong. That's God. He's stirring your spirit, whispering that it's time to let go. And if you don't listen, He will allow situations to unfold that force you to walk away. Unanswered calls, unreplied messages, and plans that never work out. Sometimes, God doesn't need to do anything dramatic. He simply lets life take its course. Have you ever noticed how some people stop reaching out? How no matter how much you try to reconnect, plans always fall through. How conversations that once flowed effortlessly now feel forced. That's not by accident. That's God softly closing the door. He knows your heart. He knows you don't like conflict, that you struggle with letting go. So instead of forcing separation, He allows it to happen naturally, until one day you wake up and realize that chapter has quietly closed. A revelation that changes everything. Sometimes, God lets you see something, just enough to confirm what you already felt in your spirit. Maybe you overheard a conversation that exposed their true intentions. Maybe you discovered that they weren't as loyal as they claimed. Maybe you suddenly saw a pattern you had ignored for too long. It wasn't a coincidence. It was God pulling back the curtain. He knew you needed clarity before you could truly move on. And once He revealed the truth, you had no choice but to walk away. A prayer you didn't realize was answered. How many times have you prayed for protection, for wisdom, for God to surround you with the right people? What if I told you that God answered that prayer, not by adding new people, but by quietly removing the wrong ones? You didn't see it as an answered prayer at first. Maybe it even felt like a loss. But looking back, you realize you're at peace now. You've grown. You've stepped into new blessings. And the people who left? They were never meant to stay. God removes to make room for better. When God takes someone out of your life, it's never a punishment. It's a preparation. He is making room for people who will pour into you, not drain you. Who will lift you up, not tear you down. Who will walk with you, not just watch you from the sidelines. And that's why when He removes someone, don't chase after them. Don't try to reopen a door that He has closed. Trust that He is doing something better. Because what comes next is not just the removal of the wrong people, but the arrival of the right ones. But what happens when you fight against this process? What happens when you ignore the signs, hold on to what God is trying to remove, and refuse to let go? The answer is something most people don't want to face. But we need to talk about it. What happens when you ignore God's warning about fake people? Have you ever felt uneasy about someone, yet convinced yourself that everything was fine? Maybe God showed you red flags, moments where their words didn't match their actions, where something felt off in your spirit. But instead of walking away, you held on. You made excuses. You ignored the signs. But here's the truth. When God warns you, He expects you to listen. And when you don't, the consequences can be far greater than you ever imagined. God doesn't expose fake people to hurt you. He does it to protect you. And when you refuse to let go, you're not just keeping the wrong person in your life. You're delaying the blessings that were meant to take their place. The longer you hold on, the deeper the damage. When God begins to reveal someone's true nature, that is your opportunity to walk away with grace. But if you ignore the warning, what could have been a quiet separation often turns into a painful disaster. At first, you might only notice small things, betrayals in the form of broken promises, words that cut deeper than they should, actions that don't align with love. But the longer you ignore the signs, the more damage they cause. God doesn't just see who they are today. He sees who they will become in your future. And if He's trying to remove them now, it's because He knows that keeping them around will only bring deeper wounds later. Your peace begins to diminish. There's nothing more exhausting than keeping someone in your life that God has already removed in the spirit. Maybe you felt it, the heaviness that lingers in their presence, the tension that grows with every conversation, the way your energy seems drained whenever they're around. That's not normal. That's a spiritual warning. When you're aligned with the right people, there's peace. But when you fight to hold on to the wrong ones, peace disappears. Anxiety increases. Confusion grows. Your spirit feels unsettled. That's not because something is wrong with you. It's because God is trying to get your attention. He will not let you rest in a place where He has not called you to be. The blessings meant for you are delayed. God is always leading you toward greater things. But there are blessings He cannot release until you let go of what's blocking them. You can't receive the right relationships when you're clinging to the wrong ones. You can't walk in your purpose when you're tied to someone who pulls you backward. Many people cry out to God, asking why their prayers aren't being answered, why things aren't shifting, why they feel stuck. But the truth is, they are holding on to what God has already told them to release. The moment you walk away from what's not meant for you, doors will begin to open. Clarity will come. And you'll realize that what you thought was holding you together was actually holding you back. You begin to drift away from God. Fake people don't just affect your emotions, they affect your spirit. Some people in your life are not just distractions, they are spiritual blockages. They lead you away from God's voice. They plant doubt where faith should grow. They keep you wrapped in unhealthy cycles that prevent you from stepping fully into your calling. You might think you're strong enough to handle it, but the longer you entertain someone who isn't aligned with God's plan for you, the more distant you become from His presence. One day, you look up and realize you don't pray like you used to. You don't seek God like you once did. Your joy, your focus, your passion, it's all faded, little by little. That's how the enemy works. He uses the wrong people to pull you away one small step at a time. God will eventually remove them, but it will hurt more. When God warns you, it's because He wants to remove them with as little pain as possible. But if you ignore the warnings, He will still remove them. Only this time, the process will be more painful. Maybe you've already experienced this. A relationship that ended in betrayal when it could have ended in peace. A friendship that became toxic when it could have simply faded. A season that became heavier than it needed to be because you refused to let go. God gives you a choice. Walk away when He first speaks, or wait until the damage forces you to leave. The question is, how much pain are you willing to endure before you listen? There is still time to obey. If you've been holding on to someone that God has already revealed as unhealthy, don't wait for things to get worse. Don't wait for the breaking point. Choose obedience now. God will never take something away without replacing it with something better. He is a God of restoration. He is a God of redemption. And when you finally let go, you will see why it had to happen. But what happens next? What does God do after removing someone from your life? What comes after the loss? The answer is far greater than you ever imagined. And that's what we're about to uncover next. After God exposes fake people, what comes next? When God removes the wrong people from your life, it can feel like a painful ending. The silence after they leave can feel heavy. The absence of what was once familiar can feel unsettling. But here's what you need to know. This is not the end. This is the beginning of something greater. God doesn't just take away. He restores. He doesn't just remove people. He makes room for the right ones. And when He exposes deception, it's because He's leading you into a season of clarity, healing, and divine connections. So what happens after exposure? What comes after the loss? Something better than you ever expected. A season of healing and reflection. Before God brings new people into your life, He gives you time to heal from the ones He removed. At first, you might feel confused, maybe even hurt. You might question why things happened the way they did. But this is not a season of regret. It's a season of revelation. God wants you to take this time to reflect, to see the lessons in what happened, to recognize the patterns you need to avoid in the future, to grow in wisdom so that the next time you will discern who is truly for you and who is just pretending. This is not a punishment, it's preparation, because what God is about to bring into your life requires a healed version of you. God begins to replace what you lost. You may feel like you've lost something valuable, but what if I told you that God never removes without replacing? That friend who walked away, God has someone more loyal waiting. That relationship that ended, God has a love that is built on truth and faithfulness. That connection that failed, God has divine partnerships that will strengthen and uplift you. You might not see it yet, but God is already aligning the right people. People who will pour into you. People who will love you with pure intentions. People who will support your purpose instead of draining your energy. When you let go of what wasn't real, you make space for what is. New doors begin to open. When the wrong people leave, blessings that were once delayed start to flow. Have you ever noticed how certain opportunities didn't come until after someone left your life? How suddenly you had more peace, more clarity, more direction? That's not a coincidence. That's God removing distractions so you can receive what was meant for you. The friendships, the relationships, the growth that God wanted for you, they couldn't happen until you let go of what was blocking them. Now that the weight has been lifted, watch how doors begin to open. Watch how favor begins to follow you. Watch how what you once thought was a loss turns out to be the greatest gain. A stronger relationship with God. Nothing draws you closer to God like seeing His hand at work in your life. When He exposes deception, when He removes toxic people, when He realigns your path, you realize just how much He has been protecting you all along. Maybe there were moments you doubted. Maybe there were days you wondered if He was really speaking. But now, looking back, you see it clearly. God was guiding you the whole time. And now, your faith is stronger. Your trust in Him is deeper. And you're no longer the same person you were before. You've grown. What's ahead is better than what's behind. You may not have understood it when it happened. You may have questioned why the separation had to come. But now, as you step into this new season, you will see why it was necessary. The people who walked away, let them go. The relationships that ended, let them rest in the past. The pain you once carried, lay it down at God's feet. Because what's coming next? It's better. God is about to bring the right people, the right opportunities, and the right season into your life. And when it happens, you'll look back and say, "Now I understand why God had to remove them." And as you move forward, never forget this. When God takes something away, it's never a loss. It's a setup for something greater. When God makes you invisible to the wrong people, have you ever noticed how certain people who once seemed drawn to you suddenly stop paying attention? The ones who used to chase after you, admire you, or include you, now act like you don't exist. Maybe you were once the center of their attention, but now, it's like you've disappeared from their world. At first, it might feel like rejection. You wonder what changed, what went wrong, why they no longer see you the way they used to. But what if I told you, this isn't rejection, it's God's protection? When God removes someone from your life, He doesn't always do it through conflict or betrayal. Sometimes, He simply makes you invisible to the wrong people. He blocks their ability to recognize your value, shields you from their intentions, and redirects their focus away from you. Not because you're unworthy, but because He knows their heart was never meant to hold you. God blocks what's not meant for you. There are moments in life when you feel forgotten, overlooked, or excluded. You try to reconnect, but no matter how much effort you put in, something feels off. The connection isn't the same. The interest isn't there. That's not an accident. That's God stepping in. He sees what you cannot. He knows when someone is only drawn to you for what they can gain. He knows when their presence in your life is built on self-interest rather than genuine love. And to keep you from being used, from being manipulated, from being drained, he makes you invisible to them. It's not a loss, it's a rescue. The disconnection that feels unexplainable. One day, you're close. The next, you're strangers. No argument, no reason, just distance. You try to reach out, but they don't respond the same way. The conversations that once felt effortless now feel distant. The energy that once connected you now feels forced. This is not something to grieve. This is something to thank God for. Had they stayed, they would have taken more than they ever planned to give. Had they remained, they would have drained your joy, your time, your peace. But God, in His mercy, removed the desire from their heart. They don't see you the same way anymore, because God no longer allows them to. Divine protection in disguise. Rejection is often God's way of redirecting you, but many don't recognize it until later. Think back to the people you once wanted to be close to, the opportunities you once begged for, the relationships you thought you needed. Now that time has passed, can you see how they wouldn't have been good for you? You weren't rejected. You were protected. When someone suddenly loses interest, don't chase after them. When you become invisible to a group, don't try to fit in. When a door closes, don't force it open. God sees what you cannot. And sometimes, the best way He protects you is by making you disappear from the view of those who were never meant to walk with you. Separation before elevation. Before God elevates you, He isolates you. The wrong people cannot go where He is taking you. The wrong attention will only delay what He's preparing for you. So before your breakthrough, before your promotion, before your next season, He removes those who do not belong. You won't always see it at first. You may even try to fight it. But later, when you look back, you'll understand why certain people had to lose interest in you. They were never meant to recognize your worth. And this is where trust comes in. Because when God removes the wrong people, He is preparing to bring the right ones. The ones who will see you, not for what they can take, but for who you truly are. What comes next isn't loneliness. It's alignment. The season where God surrounds you with those who are meant to walk with you. The ones who will pour into your life instead of pulling from it. The ones who will help you grow instead of draining you. And when they arrive, you'll finally understand. You were never invisible. You were just being hidden for something greater. When God sends the right people after removing the wrong ones. There comes a moment when you realize that certain people in your life were never meant to stay. You fought to keep them, held on longer than you should have, and maybe even questioned why God allowed them to leave. But now, looking back, you see it clearly. They had to go. But what happens after that? After the wrong people are removed, after the betrayals, the disappointments, the heartbreak, what comes next? The answer is simple. God never leaves an empty space unfilled. Every person who left was making room. Every lost connection was clearing the way. Every closed door was setting you up for something better. Because when God removes the wrong people, He replaces them with the right ones. And when they come, everything changes. God aligns you with what you truly need. The people God sends don't just appear randomly. They are placed in your life at the right time, in the right season, for the right purpose. They are not drawn to you because of what they can take, but because of what they can give. They don't come with hidden motives, but with pure hearts. They don't drain you, they pour into you. These are the people who pray for you when you're weak. The ones who celebrate your victories without jealousy. The ones who love you without conditions, without manipulation, without selfish intent. When they arrive, you will know. Because for the first time, you won't have to wonder if they're real. A different kind of connection. When you've spent years dealing with betrayal, dishonesty, and disappointment, you get used to the idea that people always come with hidden motives. But when God sends the right ones, you'll notice something different. There's no tension, no guessing, no confusion. The conversations flow naturally. The trust is effortless. The energy feels peaceful. These are the people who bring clarity, not chaos. They make you feel seen, not just useful. They remind you of your worth, not your wounds. This is the difference between people who were sent by God and those who were only sent by circumstance. Recognizing the right people. When they arrive sometimes, after experiencing so much deception, it's hard to recognize what's real. You've been conditioned to expect betrayal. You've learned to question every good thing. But when God sends the right people, He gives you the discernment to recognize them. They won't have to force their way into your life. They won't demand your time, your energy, or your approval. They will simply be there. And over time, you will see their character. They show up in your difficult moments. They support you in ways you never had to ask for. They stand with you not just when things are easy, but when life gets hard. This is what divine connections look like. This is what it means to be surrounded by people who are truly sent by God. The reward of obedience. When God removed the wrong people, it wasn't to hurt you. It was a test of trust. Would you surrender what wasn't meant for you, even when it hurt? Would you trust that His plan was better than yours? Would you wait, even when the waiting felt lonely? Now, the answer is in front of you. The right people are coming. The ones who will walk with you, not just for a season, but for a purpose. The ones who will love you the way God always intended. When they come, you'll understand why you had to lose what you thought you needed. Because nothing that was taken away compares to what God is about to give you. And when you finally step into this new season, you will see the best was always ahead of you. Every person who enters your life serves a purpose. Some come to teach you, some come to test you, and some come to walk with you on your journey. But no matter who comes and who leaves, God is always in control. Maybe you've experienced deep betrayal. Maybe you've lost people you never expected to lose. Maybe you've struggled with the pain of watching someone change, realizing they were never who you thought they were. But even in the heartbreak, God is working. What may feel like rejection is often God's redirection. What looks like loss is actually divine protection. What seems unfair is really God preparing you for something better. God does not remove people to leave you broken. He removes them to restore you. He takes away what's harmful so He can fill your life with what is holy. And even when you don't understand it in the moment, one day you will look back and see why it had to happen exactly the way it did. So today, instead of mourning what was lost, trust what's ahead. Trust that God has better connections waiting for you. Trust that He will never take away without replacing with something greater. Trust that in every season, He is aligning you with people who will uplift you, encourage you, and lead you closer to Him. Let's pray together. Dear Heavenly Father, thank You for Your divine wisdom and guidance. Thank You for protecting me from people who were never meant to walk with me. Even when I didn't see the danger, even when I wanted to hold on, You knew what was best. Lord, I surrender every relationship into Your hands. If someone is not meant to be in my life, I trust You to remove them. If someone is meant to stay, I trust You to strengthen that connection. No matter what happens, I choose to follow Your will. Heal the wounds left behind by broken relationships. Restore my heart from every betrayal, every disappointment, every moment of doubt. Remind me that my worth is not found in who stays or who leaves, but in who I am in You. And Father, I ask You to send the right people into my life, people who will love me purely, who will pray for me, who will speak truth over me, and who will walk with me in faith. Fill my life with relationships that glorify You. I trust You with my future. I trust You with my relationships. I trust You in every season. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Thank you for joining me in this video. May God continue to guide your steps, open your eyes to His truth, and fill your life with the right people at the right time.